The pristine halls of Galactic Central University buzzed with nervous energy on the morning Professor Sarah Chen arrived. Students of various species pressed themselves against the walls, their appendages trembling as the human walked past. Some used their secondary eyes to watch her while pretending to look elsewhere. Others didn't even try to hide their stares. "Is that really a Deathworlder?" whispered Zixtal, his 8 crystalline legs clicking anxiously against the polished floor. His friend Blura, a floating cloud of blue gas contained within a transparent environmental suit, pulsed with nervous energy. "Yes," Blura replied, their voice coming through the suit's translator. "That's the new professor from Earth. I heard they can survive temperatures ranging from freezing to boiling." Kthin, their crystalline classmate, sparkled with curiosity. Unlike the others, Kthin moved closer to get a better look. "They say humans can break bones with their bare hands," they chimed, the sound like tinkling glass. Professor Chen walked with confident steps, carrying what appeared to be an ordinary data tablet. The students couldn't help but notice how she moved with a predator's grace, her movements smooth and controlled. Her dark hair was neatly tied back, and she wore the standard professor's robe, modified to fit her human form. When she entered classroom 7B, the gathered alien students fell silent. The room, designed to accommodate various species, featured floating platforms for gaseous beings, crystalline perches for silicon-based life forms, and traditional seats for more conventional body types. "Good morning, class," Sarah said, her voice clear and friendly. "I'm Professor Chen, and I'll be teaching xenocultural studies this term." She smiled, causing several students to flinch. On their homeworlds, displaying teeth was often a sign of aggression. Realizing her mistake, Sarah quickly closed her lips. "I apologize for startling you. On Earth, showing teeth in this way is a sign of friendliness. This is exactly the kind of cultural difference we'll be exploring in this class." Zixtal, sitting in the back row, raised one of his limbs hesitantly. "Professor," his translator chirped, "is it true that humans can survive being cut in half?" Sarah chuckled, causing more nervous shuffling. "No, that's just a rumor. We're tough, yes, but we can't survive being cut in half. We do heal from injuries that might be fatal to some species, though." Blura floated higher in their containment suit. "But you eat other living creatures. For pleasure." "We're omnivores," Sarah explained patiently. "We eat both plant and animal matter. But that's not what makes humans unique in the galaxy." Today, the university chancellor asked all professors to prepare a special presentation about their species' unique cultural practices. Kthin's crystalline structure sparkled with interest. "What will you teach us about, Professor?" Sarah smiled again, this time remembering to keep her lips closed. "I'm going to teach you about something that might seem strange at first, but it's very important to human culture. We're going to learn about pets." The class erupted in confused murmuring. The word pets didn't translate well into most alien languages. "What are pets?" Zixtal asked, pronouncing the unfamiliar word carefully. "Pets are other species that humans form bonds with," Sarah explained. "We share our homes with them, care for them, and treat them as family." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, one by one, students began raising their appendages, limbs, and other sensory organs, all burning with questions about this strange human practice. Sarah looked at her class of curious alien faces and knew this would be an interesting semester. Perhaps by teaching them about humanity's capacity for love and companionship, she could help bridge the gap between their worlds. The next day, Professor Chen stood before her class with a small device in her hand. The alien students watched nervously as she pressed a button, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the room. "This," she said softly, "was my first pet. Her name was Luna." The hologram showed a small, furry creature with 4 legs and a wagging tail. The alien students leaned back in their seats, some letting out small sounds of alarm. "That's a predator," Zixtal exclaimed, his 8 legs pulling his body closer together in fear. "It has sharp teeth and claws." Luna was a dog, Sarah explained, her voice filled with warmth. She was a golden retriever, one of the gentlest breeds of dogs on Earth. Watch this. The hologram changed to show a younger Sarah, perhaps 10 years old, hugging Luna. The dog was licking her face while the child laughed with joy. Several students gasped. "It's attacking your face." Blue pulsed with concern, their gaseous form swirling rapidly in their containment suit. Sarah shook her head. "No, that's how dogs show affection." Luna was giving me kisses. Dogs have been living alongside humans for over 15,000 years. They were one of the first species we formed bonds with. Kithin raised a crystalline limb. "Professor, are you saying humans deliberately brought predators into their homes?" "Yes, but not just predators. Look at this." She changed the hologram again. This time it showed various Earth pets, cats sleeping in sunbeams, fish swimming in tanks, rabbits hopping in gardens, and birds singing in cages. "But why?" asked a student from the back of the room. "Why would you capture these creatures?" "We didn't capture them," Sarah corrected gently. "These animals chose to live with us, over many generations. We call it domestication. It's different from taming a wild animal. These pets were born to live with humans. They're our companions." The hologram changed to show a blind human walking with a guide dog. "Some pets help us with important tasks. Guide dogs help humans who can't see. Other dogs help find lost people or protect homes." Zixtal's fear seemed to lessen slightly. "They help you. Voluntarily." "Yes. In return, we give them food, shelter, medical care, and most importantly, love." Sarah paused, noting the confusion on her students' faces. "Love is a strong emotional attachment we feel towards others. But they're not even the same species as you," Blura pointed out, their gas form settling into a more relaxed pattern. Sarah smiled. "That's what makes it special. Humans have a unique ability to form emotional bonds with other species. It's part of who we are." She switched the hologram one last time, showing various scenes. An elderly human reading with a cat in their lap, a child playing fetch with a dog, a parrot mimicking human words, and a hamster taking treats from gentle hands. Kin's crystalline structure sparkled with understanding. "It's like a family bond, isn't it? But across species." "Exactly," Sarah beamed. "Next class, I'm going to show you something very special. I'll bring in my own pet to meet you all." The classroom erupted with a mixture of excited and nervous chatter. Even the most fearful students couldn't hide their curiosity about meeting a real Earth pet. As the students filed out after class, Sarah noticed Zixtal lingering behind. "Professor," the arachnoid student asked quietly, "this love you mentioned, can any species learn it?" Sarah's eyes softened. "That's exactly what we're going to find out, Zixtal. That's exactly what we're going to find out." The classroom buzzed with anticipation as Professor Chen set up the holographic projector for her third lecture. Today, the room was more crowded than usual. Several other alien professors had snuck in to observe the controversial pet lecture series. "Today," Sarah began, "we'll explore how humans and animals first became friends." She activated the projector, showing a scene from ancient Earth. Humans huddled in a cave around a fire, with wolves lingering at the edge of the light. "It began over 15,000 years ago," she explained. "Wild wolves would follow human hunting groups, eating the leftover food. The friendlier wolves got more food, and slowly they became less afraid of humans." Kthin's crystalline form vibrated with interest. "Like the mineral-eating bacteria that clean our outer layers. A mutual benefit arrangement." "Exactly." Sarah beamed. "The wolves helped humans hunt and protected their camps. In return, humans shared food and shelter. Over many generations, these wolves became dogs." She changed the hologram to show ancient Egyptian cats. Cats joined human settlements later. They hunted mice and rats that would eat our stored grain. The ancient Egyptians even worshipped cats as sacred animals. Blura's gaseous form swirled thoughtfully in their containment suit. "But Professor, aren't cats dangerous?" They have sharp claws and teeth. Sarah nodded. Yes, cats are natural predators. But look at this. She switched to a new hologram, showing a tiny kitten sleeping in an elderly human's lap. They choose to be gentle with us. They could hurt us, but instead, they show affection. The projector then displayed various scenes from human history. Horses helping farmers plow fields, birds carrying messages across vast distances, dogs rescuing people from avalanches, and cats providing comfort in hospitals. Throughout human history, Sarah continued, animals have been more than just helpers. They became our friends, our family members. Some even became heroes. She showed a series of news recordings, a dog pulling a child from a burning building, a cat waking its family during a fire, a dolphin protecting a drowning swimmer from sharks. Zixtel, who had been quiet until now, raised a leg. Professor, how do you know if an animal actually cares about you? Maybe they just want food. Sarah smiled and pressed another button. The hologram showed a scientific diagram of brain scans. When dogs look at their human family, their brains release the same chemicals that human brains release when we look at people we love. They actually feel happiness and love, just like we do. One of the visiting professors, a tall insectoid being, clicked their mandibles skeptically. This seems highly irregular, mixing different species in living spaces. And yet, Sarah replied calmly, it's one of humanity's greatest strengths. Our ability to form bonds with other species has helped us survive and thrive. It's taught us empathy, responsibility, and unconditional love. She switched to one final hologram, a montage of humans and animals helping each other through disasters, wars, and difficult times. These bonds have saved countless lives, both human and animal. Kithin suddenly made a chiming sound of realization. That's why you're teaching us this. Because if humans can love and bond with completely different Earth species, then maybe, Sarah finished softly, we can form similar bonds with species from other worlds too. The classroom fell silent as this idea sank in. Even the visiting professors seemed deep in thought. Next class, Sarah announced, you'll meet a very special guest. My own pet will visit us. But first, I want you all to remember what we learned today. Sometimes the strongest bonds can form between the most different beings. As the students left, many were talking excitedly about the next class. Even Zixtel, usually so fearful, seemed eager to meet a real Earth pet. The visiting professors lingered, discussing among themselves. Perhaps this strange human practice wasn't so dangerous after all. Perhaps it was exactly what the galaxy needed. The day of the pet demonstration arrived, and classroom 7B was filled with nervous tension. Professor Chen walked in carrying a small transport container, and the alien students watched with wide eyes and various sensory organs. Class, Sarah said calmly, I'd like you to meet Mr. Whiskers. She opened the container, and out stepped a large orange cat with white paws and bright green eyes. Several students immediately moved to higher platforms or backed away. Zixtal's 8 legs trembled so much that his desk rattled. Blura's gaseous form contracted into a tight ball within their containment suit. Only Kithin remained in place, their crystalline structure reflecting rainbow patterns as they watched the cat with fascination. Mr. Whiskers sat down next to Sarah's desk, calmly washing his face with one paw. The simple act made a few students lean forward with curiosity. As you can see, Sarah explained, Mr. Whiskers is very relaxed. He's 12 years old and has lived with me since he was a kitten. She took out a small laser pointer. Would you like to see how cats play? She pointed the red dot on the floor, and Mr. Whiskers immediately pounced after it. The cat chased the light across the room, jumping and spinning. Several students gasped. But then something unexpected happened. Blura started pulsing with what seemed like laughter. He knows it's not real, Sarah explained. But cats enjoy the game anyway. They play for fun, just like many intelligent species do. Kithin raised a crystalline appendage. May I move closer? Sarah nodded. Mr. Whiskers is very gentle with new friends. Move slowly and let him come to you. The crystalline being carefully shifted forward. Mr. Whiskers looked up, his whiskers twitching with interest. To everyone's surprise, the cat walked right up to Cathin and rubbed against their sparkly surface, purring loudly. "What's that sound?" Zixtal asked, his fear temporarily forgotten. "That's purring. It means he's happy," Sarah smiled. Cats purr when they're content or when they want to heal themselves. The vibration frequency actually helps their bones and muscles recover from injury. This scientific fact seemed to interest the class. Several students began taking notes. "Would anyone else like to meet him?" Sarah asked. Slowly, one by one, students began to approach. Blura discovered that Mr. Whiskers was fascinated by their swirling gas patterns. The cat watched the moving colors with wide eyes, occasionally reaching out a gentle paw to tap the containment suit. Even Zixtal eventually gathered enough courage to come closer. Mr. Whiskers carefully sniffed each of his 8 legs, making the arachnoid student giggle nervously. "His fur is so soft," Cathin chimed in wonder, as Mr. Whiskers rubbed against them again. "And warm." "Yes," Sarah said. "Cats average a body temperature of 102 degrees Fahrenheit. They actually help sick humans feel better sometimes. We call them therapy animals." "But he has claws and teeth," one student pointed out. "Why doesn't he use them?" Sarah picked up Mr. Whiskers, who immediately started purring louder. "Because he trusts us. Trust and love go both ways. We take care of him, and he chooses to be gentle with us." The class watched in amazement as the cat settled in Sarah's lap, closing his eyes contentedly. The sight of a supposedly dangerous predator showing such trust and affection was revolutionary to them. "Sometimes," Sarah said softly, stroking Mr. Whiskers' fur, "the scariest things become the most precious once we take the time to understand them." The students looked at each other, then at their human professor. They were beginning to understand that this lesson wasn't just about pets. It was about overcoming fear and prejudice, about finding friendship in unexpected places. As Mr. Whiskers dozed peacefully in Sarah's lap, the atmosphere in the classroom had completely changed. Fear had given way to curiosity, and curiosity was slowly blossoming into understanding. A week after meeting Mr. Whiskers, Professor Chen's classroom was buzzing with excitement. Today was the start of their research projects, where each student would study different Earth pets. "Each of you will choose one type of Earth pet to research," Sarah explained, displaying a holographic list of animals. "You'll learn about how they live with humans and why they make good companions." Blura was the first to choose. Their gaseous form swirled with excitement as they pointed at the hologram. "I want to study these underwater creatures. What are they called?" "Fish," Sarah smiled. "Many humans keep aquariums, containers of water with colorful fish inside. They find watching fish very relaxing. Like how my species finds peace in watching gas storms." Blura exclaimed, "I understand that feeling." Thin chose next, their crystalline form sparkling. "I wish to study these small flying creatures, birds. They remind me of the crystal singers on my homeworld." "Excellent choice," Sarah nodded. "Birds can learn to speak human words and even understand simple conversations. Some species are as intelligent as human children." To everyone's surprise, Zixtal raised a leg confidently. "Professor, I want to learn about these large animals. Dogs. The ones that work with humans." Sarah beamed with pride. This was the same student who had once trembled at the thought of Earth predators. "Specifically, I think you might enjoy learning about herding dogs. They help farmers control large groups of other animals." The rest of the class made their choices: hamsters, rabbits, horses, and various other Earth pets. Sarah handed out data tablets containing information about each animal. As the students began their research, Sarah walked around the room, helping them understand what they were learning. "Professor," Blura called out excitedly, "these fish called bettas change colors like my species does when expressing emotions. Look at this." Cathin chimed in. This parrot solved a puzzle faster than some humans can. They're problem solvers, like the crystal matrices in my home cluster. But the biggest surprise came from Zixtal. He had become completely absorbed in studying sheepdogs. Professor, he said, his voice full of wonder, these dogs use the same hunting patterns my species uses to gather mineral deposits, but they use it to help humans instead of hunting. Sarah sat down next to him. That's right. Dogs adapted their natural instincts to work with humans. They found a new purpose. The classroom grew quiet as everyone worked on their projects. Some students watched videos of their chosen animals, while others read about care requirements and behavioral patterns. I have a question, one student asked. Why do humans spend so much time and resources caring for these animals when they don't have to? Sarah thought for a moment. Because the relationship gives both sides something valuable. Humans get companionship, help, and unconditional love. The animals get care, safety, and affection. It's a partnership. As the class continued their research, Sarah noticed something remarkable. The students weren't just learning about Earth pets, they were finding connections to their own species and cultures. Blura had created a detailed plan for an aquarium that would sync its lights with their emotional state. Cathin was practicing bird calls using their crystalline resonance. Zixtal was drawing parallels between herding dog commands and his species' coordination signals. Before next class, Sarah announced as the session ended, I want you all to think about something. Consider how these human-animal relationships might help us understand each other better. Not just humans and Earth animals, but all species in the galaxy. The students left the classroom still talking excitedly about their projects. Sarah smiled as she heard them making plans to share their findings with friends and family. Something was changing. These weren't just research projects anymore. They were becoming bridges between worlds. The day of the presentations arrived, and classroom 7B was packed. Not only were all the students present, but several alien professors and even the university chancellor had come to watch. Mr. Whiskers sat proudly on Professor Chen's desk, his tail swishing with interest. Blura floated forward first, their containment suit now decorated with moving images of tropical fish. My research focused on aquariums, they began, projecting a hologram of colorful fish. Humans keep water-breathing creatures not just for beauty, but for stress relief. The smooth movements of fish create a calming effect, much like the gas dances of my home nebula. The audience watched, fascinated, as Blura showed videos of children in hospitals being calmed by aquariums, and office workers focusing better with fish tanks nearby. Most importantly, Blura concluded, these fish choose to interact with humans. They recognize their caretakers and swim to greet them. Finn presented next, their crystalline form catching the light. I studied birds, particularly parrots. They played a recording of a parrot saying, I love you to its human family. These creatures learn human words not just to copy, but to communicate. They form emotional bonds so strong that they grieve when separated from their humans. The chancellor leaned forward with interest as Cathin demonstrated how parrots solve puzzles and use tools. They are not just pets, Cathin chimed. They are family members who happen to have feathers instead of skin. Then came Zixtal's turn. The once fearful arachnoid now stood confidently before the class. I researched herding dogs, he said, displaying footage of border collies working with sheep. These predators use their hunting instincts not to harm, but to help. They protect the very creatures they might once have hunted. He played videos of search and rescue dogs, guide dogs, and therapy dogs. These animals risked their lives for humans. Not because they have to, but because they want to. They understand loyalty and duty as well as any sentient species. Other students presented their findings about different pets, the quiet companionship of cats, the playful nature of rabbits, the gentle strength of horses. Each presentation revealed new aspects of human-animal relationships. Near the end, a visiting professor raised an appendage. But these humans are clearly the dominant species. Why don't they simply control these animals through force? Sarah stood up, with Mr. Whiskers following to rub against her legs. Because that's not what companionship means. True bonds can't be forced. They must be built on trust and mutual respect. I think I understand now, Kitten said thoughtfully. When humans call these animals pets, they're not talking about possession. They're talking about family. Yes, Zixtal added, his voice excited. And if humans can form such bonds with Earth species, maybe they can form similar bonds with us. Blura finished, their gas forms swirling with emotion. The Chancellor stood up slowly. Professor Chen, when you first proposed teaching about Earth pets, many thought it was inappropriate. Now I see that you were teaching something far more important than just animal care. Sarah smiled, picking up Mr. Whiskers, who immediately started purring. I was teaching about breaking down barriers, about looking past our differences to find connection. The classroom fell quiet as Mr. Whiskers stretched out a paw toward the nearest alien student, who no longer flinched away. Perhaps, the Chancellor said, it's time we considered starting an interspecies companion program at the university. The excitement in the room was palpable. Students began talking all at once about the possibilities. Even the skeptical professors were nodding thoughtfully. Sarah watched her students, feeling proud. They had learned far more than just facts about Earth pets. They had learned to see past their fears and prejudices to find understanding. And Mr. Whiskers, purring in her arms, seemed to agree. 3 months after the presentations, Galactic Central University had changed dramatically. Professor Chen smiled as she walked through the halls, now decorated with images of Earth pets alongside alien creatures. The university's first interspecies companion program was in full swing. She stopped at the new aquatic center, where Blura was teaching a class about Earth fish. Their containment suit now housed a small floating aquarium, where colorful betta fish swam in patterns matching Blura's gaseous movements. The fish respond to our emotions, Blura was explaining to a group of fascinated students. When I'm happy, they dance. When I'm calm, they float peacefully. We understand each other without words. In another room, Kithin had set up a bird sanctuary. Their crystalline forms sparkled as they worked with a bright green parrot named Echo. The bird had learned to mimic the musical tones of Kithin's species, creating beautiful duets that both species enjoyed. Echo doesn't see me as a strange crystal being, Kithin told visitors. She sees me as her friend. That's what Professor Chen taught us. Friendship doesn't care about what species you are. But the biggest surprise was Zixtal. The once fearful arachnoid now ran the university's new therapy animal program. Sarah found him in the garden, carefully supervising as a golden retriever named Hope played with anxious alien students. Professor, Zixtal called out excitedly. Hope helped another student today. She was scared of living on a planet with so many different species, but after spending time with Hope, she feels braver. Sarah watched as the dog gently nuzzled a trembling alien student, who gradually relaxed and even attempted to pet Hope's soft fur. Mr. Whiskers, who had become the unofficial mascot of the university, padded along beside Sarah as she made her way to a special ceremony. The Chancellor had called all students and faculty together for an important announcement. The Great Hall was packed with beings of all shapes and sizes. Some floated, some sparkled, some clicked and buzzed, but all waited quietly as the Chancellor took the stage. When Professor Chen first introduced the concept of pets to our university, the Chancellor began. Many thought it was dangerous. A Deathworlder teaching about keeping other species as companions. It seemed inappropriate. The crowd murmured in agreement, remembering their initial fears. But look at us now, the Chancellor continued. Our students are learning not just about Earth pets, but about breaking down barriers between all species. The Interspecies Companion Program has improved mental health, reduced anxiety, and created friendships across species barriers we thought impossible to cross. Sarah felt tears in her eyes as she watched her former students. Blura's fish danced in their floating tank, Kithin's parrot sang crystalline songs, and Zixtal sat confidently next to Hope, no longer afraid of Earth creatures. Therefore, the Chancellor announced, we are expanding the program to all galactic universities. Professor Chen's course will become part of our standard curriculum. The hall erupted in cheers, clicks, chimes, and various other sounds of alien joy. Later that evening, Sarah sat in her office, Mr. Whiskers purring in her lap. She looked at the photos on her wall, pictures of her students with their companion animals, each one showing the remarkable journey from fear to friendship. We did it, Mr. Whiskers, she said softly, scratching behind his ears. We showed them that love and friendship don't care about what planet you're from. Mr. Whiskers meowed in agreement, then looked up as Blura floated in with their fish. Keithin entered with Echo on their shoulder, and Zixtal arrived with Hope wagging her tail. Professor, they said together, thank you for teaching us that the scariest things can become the most precious friends. As Sarah looked at her students, no longer afraid, no longer separated by species barriers, she knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was learning what humanity had known for thousands of years, that love, trust, and friendship could bridge any distance, break any barrier, and bring together even the most different of beings. And Mr. Whiskers purred on, as if he had known it all along.